Princess Lyra of planet Zira stood at the edge of the grand hall, her hands folded tightly in front of her. The hall glittered with crystals that reflected the light in sharp, dazzling patterns, and the low hum of alien technology filled the air. Around her, Zyran nobles whispered in anxious tones, their eyes darting to the tall figure standing at the far end of the hall. Today was not just a ceremony, it was a gamble for peace. Lyra's heart pounded against her ribs. She had been chosen to marry a human, Marcus, to secure a fragile alliance between her planet and Earth. The thought felt strange, almost absurd. Humans were fragile, unpredictable, and weak compared to the Zyrans. They couldn't survive in extreme conditions without assistance, yet they had something the Elders insisted could help stop the war between two powerful alien factions. The massive doors swung open, and all eyes turned. Marcus walked in, calm and upright, wearing a suit that looked laughably simple by Ziran standards. His steps were measured and steady, yet there was a presence about him that made the entire hall fall silent. Lyra felt an involuntary shiver run down her spine. Something about this human was different. Not weak, not ordinary. Dangerous, in a way she couldn't understand. She watched him approach, his dark eyes scanning the room, not with fear, but with a quiet, piercing intensity. Lyra's advisors whispered warnings, reminding her to be cautious that humans were unpredictable. Yet, when Marcus stopped before her, he bowed slightly, not too low, not too stiff. His expression was unreadable, but something in his eyes made Lyra's chest tighten. The ceremony began. Words of unity, of peace echoed through the hall. Lyra recited her vows as best as she could, her voice steady, though her mind raced. She could feel the tension in the room, the quiet suspicion of the nobles who had never trusted humans. Then, Marcus spoke his vows. His voice was clear, calm, and carried an almost eerie confidence that cut through the tension. When the ritual ended, the crowd cheered, a wave of forced celebration. Lyra tried to smile, but her eyes kept returning to Marcus. There was a stillness in him, a strange focus, as if he could see through everyone in the room. She had married him to secure peace, but she found herself wondering, what was he really capable of? Later that evening, they walked through the palace gardens. The sky above Zira was painted in swirling colors that humans had no names for. Lyra's mind kept returning to the rumors she had heard. Humans had survived wars that no one thought possible, achieved feats that seemed impossible. Could one human truly make a difference here, on a planet where armies could destroy entire cities in minutes? "You are quiet," Marcus said suddenly, his voice calm but carrying an undeniable weight. Lyra startled, realizing he had been observing her. I am just thinking," she replied. "This peace, it feels so fragile. How can we be sure it will last?" Marcus's eyes scanned the horizon, where the armies of Zyra's enemies were stationed. "Fragile is how peace begins," he said softly. "Strength alone cannot protect it. Sometimes it is the unexpected that keeps war away." Lyra's eyebrows furrowed. His words were simple, yet they carried a depth that made her uneasy. Something in him suggested he was capable of more than any human or alien she had ever seen. Just then, a distant explosion shook the gardens. The nobles gasped. Guards rushed to the walls and Lyra felt her pulse quicken. But Marcus's reaction was almost casual. He stepped forward, scanning the distance, his expression completely unchanged. Lyra noticed his hand hover near a small, sleek device at his side. She didn't know what it was, but she felt a strange mix of fear and awe. "They are testing us," Marcus said, his voice low and dangerous. "And soon we will show them that peace can be enforced if needed." Lyra felt a chill. Enforced peace? She had married a human to prevent war, yet this calm, seemingly ordinary man seemed ready to destroy anyone who threatened it. Was this what the elders had meant? Had they known Marcus was not just a diplomat, but a force unlike any they had ever seen? That night, Lyra could not sleep. She lay in her chamber staring at the ceiling, thinking about the man she had married. He was gentle in manner, polite, almost unassuming. But behind that calm exterior, she sensed a storm. A storm that could either save her world or change it forever. Outside, the city of Zira slept under the watchful stars. And somewhere beyond the mountains, the first whispers of war began to stir. But Lyra, for the first time in her life, did not feel fear. She felt curiosity, and perhaps a strange, terrifying hope. For the human she had married. The morning after the wedding, a tense silence fell over planet Zira. The sky, once clear and calm, now shimmered with the distant glow of warships on the horizon. Princess Lyra stood on her crystal palace balcony, watching the storm gather. The peace she had just married for was already cracking. Below, human and alien guards stood side by side, still learning to trust one another. But whispers were already spreading among the Zyrans. They called humans soft creatures, skilled in talking but useless in a fight. The tension was so thick you could feel it. Everyone waited, wondering if this fragile alliance would break before it even began. Marcus, the human ambassador, her husband, stood beside her, his face a mask of calm. His eyes tracked the distant lights in the sky like a hunter watching his prey. There was something about him, a quiet strength that made even trained alien soldiers look away. He didn't speak often, but when he did, every word carried weight. Suddenly, a loud boom shattered the silence. Lyra gasped as a border village, a symbol of their new peace, was engulfed in flames. Enemy troops were attacking. Without a word, without waiting for orders, Marcus turned to the guard captain. "Prepare the shuttle," he said, his voice flat. Lyra's eyes widened in disbelief. "You can't go. That's a battlefield." Marcus looked at her, his expression unchanged. "Then that's exactly where I need to be." There was no time to argue. Within minutes, the royal shuttle was slicing through the smoke-filled sky. Against all advice, Lyra followed in another craft. A deep instinct told her she had to see this for herself. The village was pure chaos. Flames devoured silver rooftops as confused alien soldiers shouted and scattered. Enemy drones hovered overhead, firing energy bolts that shattered buildings into dust. Civilians ran, screaming for help. Lyra clutched her robe, her heart pounding with terror. She looked at Marcus, expecting to see fear, or at least hesitation. But he simply stepped forward. He moved with a strange, unnerving calm that didn't belong in a war zone. He pulled a small metallic disc from his belt and pressed a button. A deep hum filled the air, followed by a ripple of invisible energy. Instantly, every enemy drone within 50 meters froze, glitched, and dropped from the sky like stones. Lyra's mouth fell open. What did you just do?" Marcus didn't answer. He just kept walking. Tall, armored, monstrous-looking enemy soldiers spotted him and laughed. One raised its plasma rifle and fired. A searing bolt of energy shot toward Marcus. But before it could hit, he lifted his hand. A transparent energy shield flickered into existence, deflecting the blast into a nearby wall. The laughter died. Marcus kept walking, step by steady step. Each movement was precise, each glance unshaken. And then, he moved. He became a blur, too fast to follow. In seconds, he was among them. His hands were lightning, disabling weapons, striking pressure points, turning their own technology against them. He wasn't using brute force. He was using intelligence, precision, absolute control. Lyra could barely breathe. She'd seen armies fight and die, but this was something else entirely. Marcus wasn't fighting like a soldier. He was fighting like a storm, cold, silent, and unstoppable. In less than 5 minutes, the entire enemy squad lay defeated. Smoke drifted over the now silent battlefield. Not a single shot had been fired from his side. Not a single casualty among their own. The Ziran soldiers who had survived stood frozen, staring at Marcus as if he were a ghost. One finally whispered, "That's impossible." Marcus turned back, his expression as calm as ever. "Nothing is impossible," he said. "You just have to be ready to do what others won't." Lyra walked toward him, her voice shaking. You ended a battle in minutes. Who are you, really?" Marcus met her gaze, his tone quiet but powerful. "I'm human," he said. "And humans. We fight differently." She saw something ancient in his eyes. Not arrogance or rage, but a determination that felt almost inhuman. He glanced back at the burning ruins. "Your enemies don't fear treaties," he continued. "They only fear strength. Peace built on weakness will always fall." That night the story spread across Zira like wildfire. The tale of the human who crushed an army alone. Some called him a hero. Others whispered he was a monster in human skin. Lyra sat in her chamber, replaying the battle in her mind. She had married Marcus for peace, but what she had witnessed was raw, absolute power hidden inside a man who barely raised his voice. When Marcus entered the room, he looked as if nothing had happened. He stood by the window, staring at the alien stars. "This was just the beginning," he said softly. "If they come again, they'll see what humanity really is." Lyra shivered, not from fear, but from awe. She finally understood. Her husband wasn't just a diplomat, he was a weapon, disguised as a man. And the galaxy had no idea what kind of storm it had just awakened. The next morning, the palace was buzzing with whispers. Everyone was talking about the same impossible story. A single human had taken down an entire enemy squad. Some said he must have used forbidden weapons. Others were convinced he wasn't even human. Princess Lyra sat in her private chamber, staring at her reflection in a silver mirror. Her hands were still trembling from what she'd witnessed. Marcus had moved like a shadow, fast, silent, and terrifyingly precise. He'd ended a full-blown battle in minutes, without a single shout, without a shred of mercy. And then, he just came back like nothing had happened. She turned as the door slid open. It was Marcus, dressed in his simple black uniform. He always looked the same, calm, steady, and impossible to read. But now, all Lyra could see was the man who had single-handedly turned the tide of war. "You didn't sleep," he said, his voice low and even. She hesitated. "How could I? What you did yesterday. No one could do that, not even our greatest generals." Marcus looked at her for a long moment, then turned toward the balcony. Outside, the twin suns of Zira were rising, casting a golden glow across the crystal towers of the city. "When humans first looked at the stars," he said slowly, "they were weak, small, powerless. But we learned to fight not with strength, but with will." Lyra stepped closer. "That wasn't just will, Marcus, that was something else. You knew exactly where to strike, exactly what to do. Who trained you?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed fixed on the horizon. Finally, he spoke. "Before Earth made peace with your people, we fought wars of our own, wars that nearly erased us. We built weapons to survive. We trained ourselves to think faster than our enemies, to turn fear into pure focus." Lyra frowned. "So you're a soldier." Marcus gave a faint smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Once, now I'm something else." She wanted to ask more, but before she could, palace guards burst into the room. "Your Highness, urgent council meeting," one shouted. The great council chamber was thick with tension. Alien leaders from across the system sat in a tense circle, their ornate robes heavy with jewels, their faces cold and suspicious. Lyra sat beside Marcus as the room filled with angry accusations. "This human is dangerous," one of the generals barked. "He defeated 50 soldiers alone. How can we possibly trust such a creature?" Another leader slammed his fist on the table. "We invited peace, not destruction. What if he decides to turn against us next?" Lyra wanted to defend him, but Marcus rose to his feet first. His calm presence silenced the room instantly. "You think I wanted to fight?" he said calmly. "I gave them a chance to surrender. They refused, so I ended it." His tone was even, but every word carried the undeniable weight of truth. He looked around the room, meeting every single gaze without a hint of fear. "If your idea of peace is letting your enemies burn down villages, then your peace is already dead." A long, heavy silence followed. No one dared to reply. Lyra felt a strange sense of pride swell inside her. He was right. He wasn't a monster, he was a protector, the kind who did what others couldn't. But not everyone was convinced. Outside the council chamber, shadows moved in the dark corners of Zira. Powerful figures whispered Marcus's name. Some called him the human storm. Others called him the beginning of the end. That night, Lyra found Marcus again. He was standing alone in the palace observatory, staring up at the stars. The galaxies shimmered like scattered diamonds all around them. "You stood against the entire council today," she said quietly. "You don't care what they think of you, do you?" He turned slightly, his face half lit by the starlight. "I care about peace," he said. "But peace doesn't survive on talk alone. It survives when someone is willing to stand up for it, no matter the cost." Lyra watched him closely. "And how many times have you had to stand for it, Marcus?" He looked at her, and for the very first time she saw something flicker behind his calm exterior. Pain. "Too many," he said softly. "On Earth we learned that peace is never free. It's paid for in blood. I swore I wouldn't let that happen again. Not here." Lyra's heart ached for him. He wasn't just strong. He was broken in a way she couldn't see before. Every battle he fought wasn't just against an enemy. It was against his own past. Suddenly, a red warning light flashed across the observatory screen. A messenger drone hovered in front of them, its metal surface cracked and scorched. Marcus grabbed it and pressed a button. A hologram flickered to life. An alien commander appeared, his face scarred, his eyes glowing an ominous red. "We know who you are, human," the voice hissed. "Your strength means nothing. Soon the real war begins." The message cut off, and the drone fell silent. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Who was that? Marcus's jaw tightened. Not just a rival faction, that was something much worse. He turned his gaze back to the stars. His voice dropped, low and grim. "There's a storm coming, Lyra, and this time, it won't just be one planet at war." That night, as the palace lights dimmed, Lyra stood alone at her window, thinking of her husband. She didn't know what kind of storm was coming, but she knew one thing for certain. If war returned, Marcus would not stand aside. He would fight, and the universe would finally learn what a single human could truly do. The palace on planet Zyra stood tall and silent, but beneath its glowing towers the air was thick with secrets. Peace had lasted barely 2 weeks since the wedding of Princess Lyra and the human Marcus. 2 weeks, and already, cracks were spreading through the fragile alliance. The council chambers some Zyran generals whispered in private meetings. They spoke of fear, of control, of how Marcus had become too powerful, too unpredictable. "He's dangerous," one hissed. "He could destroy us all if he wished." Another replied, "Then we must strike before he does." And in the dark corners of the palace, a deal was made. A betrayal was set in motion, one that would change everything. Princess Lyra sat by the window of her private room, watching the night sky glitter with stars. Her mind was restless. Marcus had become distant lately, his silence heavier, his eyes sharper. He spent hours studying battle reports and scanning the skies for enemy movement. When she finally approached him, he was standing near the balcony, his holographic screen glowing with tactical maps. "You're expecting another attack," she said quietly. Marcus didn't look away from the screen. "Not expecting, preparing." Lyra frowned. "The council insists peace is stable." He turned to her slowly. "The council lies. They're hiding something." Before she could respond, an alarm blared through the palace halls, shrill and urgent. Red lights flashed across the ceilings. Soldiers ran past the doors shouting warnings. Marcus's expression hardened. "They've done it." Lyra's heart pounded. "Done what?" "Betrayed us." Outside, the city burned. Explosions rocked the sky as Zyran military drones, their own army's machines, turned against the human quarters near the capital. Flames lit up the night as screams echoed through the metal streets. Lyra followed Marcus to the command tower, her voice trembling. "This can't be true. Our people would never—" But Marcus cut her off, his tone cold. "Power makes people blind, Lyra. They feared what they couldn't control, so they decided to destroy it." At that moment, a transmission flickered onto the command screen. General Vrax, one of Lyra's own advisors, appeared. "Human," Vrax sneered. "Your time on Zyra ends tonight. We never needed your kind. We only needed your fear. Marcus's eyes darkened. I don't fear you, he said calmly. You should fear what comes next. Before Vrax could reply, Marcus shut the transmission off. He turned to Lyra. Stay here, no matter what happens. She reached for him. Marcus, don't go alone. But he was already moving. The city was chaos. Smoke covered the sky and the streets glowed red with fire. Enemy mechs, tall, spider-like war machines, marched through the capital, their cannons destroying everything in sight. Marcus moved through the flames like a shadow. He wore no armor, no helmet, only the small devices strapped to his wrists. Every step he took was calm. Every move, precise. A group of Zyran soldiers spotted him. There he is, the human, one shouted. They opened fire, but before the shots reached him, Marcus activated a pulse shield. The air shimmered blue as the energy bolts bounced away harmlessly. He raised his hand and a small drone detached from his wrist. It expanded mid-air, spinning fast, releasing a blinding flash. The soldiers screamed as their systems shut down, their armor freezing in place. Marcus didn't stop. He moved faster now, silent, unstoppable. He reached the central power grid, where the rebellion's control hub pulsed with energy. Inside stood General Vrax himself, surrounded by guards. So the monster comes, Vrax hissed. You should have stayed on your dying planet, human. Marcus stepped closer, his voice steady. You made one mistake, General. You thought peace was weakness. Then he moved. The fight lasted seconds. Flashes of light, bursts of sound, and then silence. When the smoke cleared, the guards were gone. Vrax was on the ground, trembling, his armor cracked. Marcus leaned over him. You tried to destroy peace because you feared what you didn't understand, he said quietly. Now you'll live long enough to see what true strength looks like. He turned and walked away, leaving the general alive, but broken. Hours later, the fires died out. Marcus stood on the balcony of the ruined command tower watching the sunrise. His clothes were torn, his face streaked with ash, but his eyes still burned with a calm fire. Lyra found him there. She wanted to be angry, to shout for the destruction he had caused, but instead, she felt only sorrow and awe. They betrayed you, she whispered. But you still saved them. Marcus didn't answer right away. He looked at the rising sun, his voice low. I didn't save them, he said. I saved the idea of peace, but it's fading, Lyra. Every time I fight, I feel it slipping away. She stepped closer, then stopped fighting. He turned to her slowly, his eyes filled with a quiet pain. If I stop, the galaxy burns. That night, the city lay in ruins, but the rebellion was crushed. Every soldier who survived spoke of what they saw. A human who fought like a god, who spared enemies yet broke armies. His legend grew stronger, his name whispered in both fear and reverence. But in the shadows beyond Zira's orbit, something darker stirred. A signal left the planet, a warning sent across space, and far away, a voice answered. Prepare the fleets, it said. The human has revealed himself. The real war had just begun. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe for the next chapter of this epic saga. Thanks for watching. The rebellion had ended, but a heavy silence settled over Zira. The capital city was rebuilding, but the scars of fire still marred its shining towers. Everywhere people whispered one name, Marcus, the human storm. Some said it with gratitude, others with fear. Princess Lyra worked tirelessly to restore hope. She smiled for the cameras, gave speeches, and promised a brighter future. But beneath the surface, she felt the tension in the air, a quiet that felt like the calm before something far worse. Marcus once told her, "Peace is just the time between battles." Now, she was starting to understand. One evening, as the twin suns set, Marcus stood alone on the palace balcony. He'd barely slept since the attack. His eyes were locked on the dark sky, where a single faint red light flickered. A signal. He had seen it before, a lifetime ago. Lyra approached him quietly. "You've been watching that light every night," she said. Marcus didn't turn. "It's not a star," he replied, his voice low. "It's a ship, and it's coming." Lyra frowned. "Another invasion?" He nodded slowly. "Not an invasion. A hunt." 3 nights later, the sky tore open. Massive alien warships appeared in orbit, an endless fleet of black, silent vessels. They belonged to the Dominion, a war empire feared across galaxies. Their leader, known only as the Warlord of Shadows, had heard tales of the human who could defeat armies alone. And he wanted a challenge. Alarms screamed across Zira's cities. From the command tower, Lyra watched the sky fill with glowing enemy ships. The Zyran fleet scrambled to defend their world, but their advanced tech looked like toys against the Dominion's armada. In the middle of the chaos, Marcus stood calm, watching the enemy through the glass. This time, he wore no ceremonial armor, only a dark combat suit with faint blue lines pulsing with energy. It was ancient human tech, from a forgotten age of war. Lyra's voice shook. "You can't fight them all alone." Marcus looked at her, his expression softening for just a moment. "I won't fight for glory. I'll fight so you can have tomorrow." Before she could protest, he turned and headed for the launch bay. The battlefield above Zira was pure chaos. Glowing ships, plasma fire, explosions painting the sky red. And right through the heart of it, a single small fighter broke through the storm. It was Marcus. The Dominion fleet unleashed hell, thousands of energy blasts converging on his ship. But he moved like a ghost, weaving and dodging, using maneuvers too unpredictable for their targeting computers. Human intuition, human chaos. Inside the Dominion command ship, the Warlord watched on his main screen, his mechanical voice hissing with disbelief. "Impossible. He flies without logic." Marcus, intercepting their comms, allowed himself a small smile. "That's what makes us human," he whispered. He then dove straight into the center of the fleet and released powerful pulse waves, disrupting their shields. Enemy drones began to fall from formation. Then, Marcus activated a hidden command. Protocol Orion. From his ship's core, a swarm of micro-drones launched, tiny machines linked directly to his thoughts. They moved as one, a living weapon, slicing through enemy ships, disabling engines and severing communication lines. The Warlord roared in fury and ordered all cannons to fire at once. The sky lit up like a second sun. From below, Lyra could only watch in horror as a blinding explosion swallowed Marcus's ship completely. "Marcus!" she cried, her voice lost in the roar of destruction. An eerie silence fell. Even the Dominion fleet ceased fire, waiting. Then, a faint blue light appeared in the smoke. Slowly, a new shape emerged. Marcus, his ship half destroyed but still flying, was surrounded by his drone swarm. He was alive. His voice, now cold as ice, echoed across all channels. "You wanted to see the power of a human. Now you will." He gave one final command. "All units, return fire." The sky exploded into chaos again, but this time, it was the Dominion's chaos. Their own systems, corrupted by Marcus's drones, turned against them. Ships fell one by one. The Warlord's command bridge cracked under pressure as explosions tore through his vessel. In his final garbled transmission, his voice shook. "What are you, human?" Marcus replied simply, "Humanity is what you become when the universe tries to break you and fails." Then he fired the last shot. The Warlord's ship vanished in a flash of light that lit up the sky like a new dawn. Back on Zira, cheers erupted as the enemy fleet burned up in the atmosphere. Lyra ran to the landing platform as Marcus's battered ship descended. When the ramp lowered, he stepped out slowly, tired, injured, but alive. She rushed to him, her eyes filled with tears. "You did it! You saved us again!" Marcus managed a faint smile. "Not just you. Everyone who believes peace is worth fighting for." He looked up at the burning debris in the sky. That night, Lyra stood beside him on the balcony. "They'll come again, won't they?" she whispered. Marcus nodded, his eyes fixed on the stars. "Yes, but next time, they'll know exactly who they're dealing with." To the universe, he was no longer just a man. He was a legend. And far beyond the edge of known space, others were already preparing. The storm of humanity had just begun. The galaxy remembered the name Marcus. Every news broadcast, every military channel, every encrypted forum, all spoke of the human who destroyed a Dominion fleet single-handedly. Some called him a hero. Others whispered another word: weapon. On the planet Zyra, fireworks painted the skies as celebrations filled the streets. But inside the palace, the mood was far colder. Princess Lyra sat at the council table surrounded by alien generals. The empty chair beside her belonged to Marcus. One general asked, "He refuses to attend again?" Lyra's soft footsteps approached from behind. "They're afraid of you," she said gently. He finally turned to her, his expression unreadable. "Good. Maybe that'll keep them alive." Lyra sighed. "Fear builds walls, Marcus, not safety." He looked away, his voice pained. "And love builds graves." A week later, a coded message arrived from deep space. "We know what he is." Lyra rushed to find Marcus in the training hall, where he was bending metal with his bare fists. "Marcus," she gasped, "someone sent a message. They know what you are." He froze, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Then it's begun. They weren't after Zyra. They were after me." He explained he was part of Project Sentinel, a secret human experiment to create the ultimate defender. Not a soldier, but something more. Something that couldn't be controlled. The next morning, sleek silver ships from the United Terran Command filled the sky. A voice echoed through the comms. "This is Captain Aiden Cole of the UTC. We request immediate contact with Commander Marcus Kane." Lyra stared in shock. The captain continued, "Marcus Kane, you are to return to human custody. Refusal will be treated as treason." The council aliens whispered in fear. Marcus's own people were treating him like a threat. He clenched his fist, his voice cold as steel. "If Earth wants to bring me home, they'll have to survive the trip." That night, Lyra found him on the balcony. "Will you fight them too?" she asked. He looked at her, sadness in his eyes. "I wanted to bring peace between our worlds. Instead, I brought war closer." Lyra held his hand. "Then we'll face it together." As the first Terran dropships descended, peace was over. The war for humanity itself was about to begin. The sky above the planet Zyra burned with an unnatural light. Hundreds of human ships hovered in perfect, silent formation, their silver hulls glinting under the twin suns. They weren't enemies, not yet, but their presence was a heavy, suffocating weight, like the stillness before a violent storm. Inside the palace war room, the air was thick with tension. Every alien general, every advisor, stood frozen as a voice crackled through the speakers. It was Captain Aiden Cole of the United Terran Command. "Commander Marcus Kane, surrender yourself. You have violated interstellar law and endangered peace. Do not resist." Princess Lyra stared in disbelief. "They want to arrest you after everything you did to bring peace?" Marcus didn't even look up from the holographic map. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his posture calm, his expression unreadable. "They don't want peace," he said, his voice soft but firm. "They want control." Lyra stepped closer, her voice pleading. "Then talk to them. Show them you're not their enemy." A faint, sad smile touched Marcus's lips. "I already did. The moment I saved Zyra, I proved that humans can be more than just soldiers. That's what terrifies them." Panic erupted among the Zyran Council. "If Earth attacks, our world will burn again." But Lyra slammed her hand on the table, her voice ringing with defiance. "Then we'll fight with Marcus." Marcus, however, shook his head. "No, this is my fight. This is my kind's war, not yours." Hours later, he walked alone through the silent corridors, heading for the landing site. The palace lights cast a golden glow, but his shadow stretched long and dark across the marble floors. Lyra followed, her steps quiet, refusing to let him face this alone. "Please," she whispered, "don't do this." He stopped and turned to her, his face etched with a deep sorrow. "If I stay, they'll brand you all as traitors. If I go, Maybe they'll believe that peace still has a chance. Lyra's voice trembled. And what if they don't? Marcus's gaze drifted upward to the sky, to the fleet hanging above them. Then I'll remind them why they should. He pressed a small metal pendant into her hand, its surface engraved with the intertwined symbols of Earth and Zira. Keep this, he said softly. It's proof that we tried. Before she could reply, the roar of engines ripped through the air. A dropship descended, its bright blue searchlights cutting through the mist. Marcus stepped forward, his shoulders straight, as heavily armored Terran soldiers stormed out. Captain Cole stood at the front, his face a mask of cold duty. Commander Kane, he said formally, you are under arrest for violating the Treaty of Isolation. Marcus tilted his head. I stopped a galactic invasion. Cole's expression didn't flicker. You started a galactic panic. Entire civilizations now fear what humanity is capable of because of you. Marcus's eyes hardened. They fear us because they finally saw what we can do when we stop being afraid of ourselves. Cole took a step closer, his voice low. The High Council believes you're too dangerous to be free. You'll come with us peacefully, or not at all. Lyra's voice cut through the tension. You can't take him, he saved billions. Cole ignored her. His soldiers raised their weapons. Marcus's hand twitched. Don't, he warned, his voice a low growl. You don't want this? Cole's jaw tightened. Last warning. A single shot was fired, but the energy bolt never reached its target. It stopped midair, frozen in a shimmering pulse of blue energy that erupted around Marcus. The ground cracked beneath his feet as a powerful shockwave threw every soldier to the floor. Marcus stood untouched, his eyes glowing with an ethereal light. He wore no armor. He didn't need it. Cole struggled to his knees, staring in utter disbelief. My God. The stories. They were true. Marcus's voice was quiet, calm, and absolutely terrifying. They called it Project Sentinel. You didn't just train me. You made me to protect humanity, not to serve its politics. He raised his hand, and every Terran weapon was torn from the soldier's grips, floating helplessly in the air. Lyra ran forward, tears streaming down her face. Marcus, stop! This isn't who you are! For a moment his glowing eyes softened as he looked at her. The light around him dimmed. I just wanted to save something worth saving, he whispered. Just then, Cole clutched his communicator. Earth Fleet, prepare orbital strike on my position. Marcus's head snapped toward the sky. No! He raised his hand. Instantly, every human ship in orbit froze. Engines died. Lights flickered out. Systems went dark across the entire fleet. One man, one mind, holding thousands of warships in an invisible grip. The Zyran generals watched from the palace, their faces a mixture of awe and terror. Lyra stepped closer, trembling. Marcus, please, don't become the monster they think you are. He looked at her, his voice cracking with pain. If I don't, they'll destroy everything we built together. She shook her head. Then show them something greater. Show them mercy. For a long, silent moment, the world held its breath. Then slowly, Marcus lowered his hand. One by one, the ships powered back on. The soldiers' weapons clattered harmlessly to the ground. Captain Cole stared, a look of profound guilt on his face. Why? Why didn't you kill us all? A faint, tired smile returned to Marcus's face. Because that's what you expected. He took a step back, the energy around him fading. Tell Earth this. Humanity's greatest strength isn't in its power to destroy. It's in our power to choose. Cole nodded slowly. And your choice? Marcus looked at Lyra one last time, his eyes full of a universe of emotion. My choice is peace. In the next instant, a blinding light enveloped him. His body dissolved into countless particles of blue energy that drifted upward like starlight. Lyra screamed his name, running forward, but there was nothing left to hold. The light rose into the sky, spreading across the clouds until it vanished among the stars. Days later, a new treaty was signed between Earth and Zira, one built on unity, not fear, No one knew what became of Marcus. Some said he ascended, becoming something beyond matter. Others believed he became a part of the cosmos itself. But every night, when Lyra looked up at the stars, one faint blue star always shined just a little brighter than the rest, and she would whisper to it, "Rest now, my storm, you gave us peace."